Hey everyone, Joe and Ashley Kovacs here for the THROvacs podcast. We're very excited to bring to you guys some updates that's going on with our personal life, with our training life, and just to get back to it, I'll let Ashley take it away.
Yeah, so we haven't done a podcast since Hawaii, so it's been quite a while. With full transparency, some real life stuff's just been going on for us. About 6 weeks ago now, we had a really close friend pass away unexpectedly, and it's just really taken a lot from me emotionally, and it's just been hard to do anything on social, quite honestly. So the month that it happened, I think it was like the worst in terms of just not really feeling like I wanted to post like everything was normal because everything felt opposite of normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since then it's just been difficult in general, I think, just to get the normal things done that we normally do. And we've just kind of been navigating through like the grief of the whole thing. Like I didn't want to not allow myself to feel the way that I was feeling. I think it's really important to try to work through the sadness and like allow yourself to feel all the emotions that you're feeling. So I really didn't want to portray anything different than that on the internet.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'll chime in on that is just like my hesitation to ever do a podcast in the past or post more on social is just I want to be authentic, you know what I mean? And I feel like we didn't really do this because it didn't feel right. It didn't
No,
feel
it
like
didn't. We
this.
didn't want to.
And it's still, we're obviously still super sad. And, she was a friend to both of us, though you have way more years and experiences than me. But it just was a weighted blanket that it felt like for me. And then, of course, I was personally sad. But then seeing you sad as well, I think that's something that anybody who gets into a relationship, a marriage, you go through these things. It's going to happen at some point. And I think might be one of our first times where we had definitely something like this, but where you're kind of towing the line between your sadness and your partner's sadness, and how do you talk about it without bringing it back up, and where you're putting somebody back down. And I think that was, the past couple of weeks have been really hard, and we want to be honest in the podcast
Well, I
to
think
people
that like
listening.
what you just said is a huge point where like we talked about this together of just, like I was feeling emotions about it. There were times that I wanted to talk about it or just it would come on to my head. It was on my mind a lot, obviously, and I think it was on your mind too. But like you said, the thing of, all right, well, she's not bringing it up, so she's probably not thinking about it, so you don't want to say anything about it, and then you don't ask about it. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's where we talked about like not burying your emotions. And like at the end of the day, like tragedy like this is traumatic to all the people that are involved with it. And I think that like we've talked about this on the podcast before, these traumatic experiences, things that happen in your life that like shake you, like we call them like life quakes, those things need to be dealt with in real time.
Yeah.
Like real time course correction in terms of like, you can't put this away and think you're going to get back to it later. Right. And if you do try to handle these tragedies like that, you're going to be doing yourself a big disservice down the line and immediately, in my opinion. And so just like you said, we hadn't really dealt with something like this collectively before. Like, obviously, we've both dealt with things in our past. I think there are like, they call them big T traumas and little T traumas. Big T traumas are like huge traumatic events that like really shake your world, like death, especially death of somebody close. But like, I mean, obviously for you losing a parent at an early age, like that's no matter what, no matter who that happens to, when it happens, then that's traumatic. That's something that shapes you. And it's something that you go back to in your mind, like even all these years down the line.
Yeah. I think you're right. There's traumas happen. I think this one in particular, I think, was a unique circumstance because, like your grandmother passed away in our relationship. We went through that.
Right.
There's probably a different feeling with
Of
that
course,
because,
100%. Because she was at the end of, I mean, she was
and
87
she
years
was very
old. And
proud of her life, and then she was, the way that she was and the way that she talked, you were excited for her to take the next path into, going with God. And, everybody who listening to this, we know we are a pretty religious family, Catholic family, but we believe that. And there was definitely something that went through that. And like you struggled, but I knew it was your grandparent. It was different. This one was a friend to both of us, a long friend for you. But it was just, It was interesting because, I know you know all the terms of like the grief and the sad, the mad, how it goes. And you and I were on different roller coasters with it. And it was just, I think talking about it was really helpful to each other. But it also, there was a point where you didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to push you back down the roller coaster if you were coming back up with your emotions and the mad, the grief, the different paths we were on. I mean, I'm fortunate we've been through this whole path of life together, but this was something that definitely hurt both of us. And that's why we've definitely, for all the listeners out there, we've been a little bit quiet lately.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to just be as transparent as possible about the fact that, like, we talked about this, you and I together, something my sister said. My sister is highly intelligent, she's getting her PhD at Cambridge. She's super smart, has great analogies and puts things extremely well, has a very dense vocabulary.
Mhm.
And I was talking to her about the situation, and she said to me, I just said, like, I feel like everything that, like, this happened and then everything kept going, And I think a lot of people that go through stuff talk about how, like, when something happens, like major, it's like you can't even believe the day's still going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can't even believe there are cars on the road. You can't even believe that people are getting Starbucks or smiling or that the sun is out, right? It's like you are so shaken. You just can't believe that everything keeps going. And for me, this is the first time that I've dealt with something like this as a parent where literally immediately after it happened, I had a Zoom call with a group of people that were depending on me. And at the time, like, it was so shocking that, like, I couldn't even process what was going on. And I did the Zoom, right? And then then our kids are coming upstairs and wanting me to go read a book and play. It's like they have no idea what's going on, right? And you have to keep it moving. So to get back to what my sister was saying, I just said, it feels like this happened and it like shook me to my core, but then everything I normally had to do is still there, plus this. And she said, capacity is fluid. And I thought that that was like such a brilliant way to say it. Capacity is fluid. And I think that's even great from a training analogy standpoint, like what you can do on a bench today and what you can do tomorrow and what you can do on a squat a week after you squatted sets of 10. It's all fluctuative. Like, it's all relative. So like my capacity for just about anything other than just getting through my normal tasks has been completely minimized. And and I think that brings back to the point of just like our training and everything. Like, to me, my number one priority in my life is our kids and you. And then, like, somewhere beneath that, I guess, is being a coach to you, like helping you with because that's how we make a living, right?
Sure.
So it has to be a priority. But that was definitely tiered down for me when this happened in terms of I couldn't think about that the same way that I normally do. The capacity in my head to process what needed to happen in your training was not as sharp as I think that it normally is. And that's just the fact of the matter, let alone, jumping on here, doing a podcast or posting. Like, that's so far down the line of like, can't even put that in my brain. And I don't care. I don't feel bad about that. Like, this is real life. And my goal for us on here is to be as close to real life as we possibly can. Right. And so, yeah, that's where I've been with it. The capacity is fluid. My capacity for anything other than just dealing with my sadness and my grief and my family it's just not there right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is, one of the things to the listeners out there, whether high school athletes, collegiate, maybe post-collegiate, and even coaches, like the aspect that I think nobody really talks about. Everyone wants to talk about periodization, the weight room, all these like kind of fun things, sure. But like there's an aspect of like, maybe somebody loses a grandparent, somebody loses an aunt and uncle, and like how that affects your life, that weighted blanket. I'll talk about how I felt even in training. Like it's kind of hard to feel an excitement when or like a drive even in training when you're so emotionally caught up with something else.
Exactly.
And I think that's I think everybody will definitely go through it in life for sure. And I'm sure coaches and athletes
it's just
out
like
there can
it's
think
like
of it.
it legitimately, when something like this happens and it's like the sadness is like in your bones, it legitimately depresses your body.
Yeah.
Right? It like slows your body down. And I've talked about this so many times with like athletes that I've had in the past, the collegiates, whatever. I talk about like emotional energy, and it's like, okay, think about laying in your bed all day crying about something.
Mm.
At the end of the day, after doing that, you could have never left your bed and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? maybe even more exhausted than you would be after a hard workout.
Yeah.
Because hard workout, like it's hard, you feel it, whatever, but there's also some chemical things going on, some dopamine, some serotonin that are giving you energy back.
Mhm.
When you're sad, you're just losing energy and you're running this marathon in your mind all day long and it exhausts you without moving your body at all. It emotionally exhausts you and that physically exhausts you and you don't even have to do anything physical.
Yep.
And I'm sure that there's tons of science on that, right? But like, I just felt, I mean, it depresses your body. Like, I didn't want to work out the same way I normally do. You're distracted by it. It's like, it's so far into your bones that you really can't see out of it. And, you obviously you have to be careful that you're like not getting into like letting that really bring you down, like, for a while. But at the same time, I think there's a really fine line between pushing it down, pushing it away, not thinking about it, not dealing with it, and feeling it. Right. And I think I needed to feel it. I still don't feel like it's not good. Right. I don't feel good about it. And I never will. But at least I feel like I'm doing all that I can to process it and try to work through it. There's no other option, right? Like there's no option other than continuing on. And I think that, this is just something, I think this is something that really shook me and it's just taking a second, it like, again, that life Quake thing, like it put me on the ground, and I lost my bearings for a little bit, but, we're doing our best to honor her memory and, like I have her in my heart and I always will. Somebody that I've been with, for nearly 20 years. Like we were friends since we were almost teenagers, like early 20s. So it's just been tough, but in general, I think that, I think I've learned a lot. I appreciate working together with you to kind of like find our way back to float on this, but it's definitely been something that, has probably been like 100% of the reason why we've probably seemed a little bit more quiet socially than normal.
Yeah, for sure. We do want to share that with you guys who listened because we've got great feedback on the few podcasts before this and what we've been doing. And I think some people were just like, you kind of went MIA, and we just want to be honest where our heads and our hearts have been. And, we're going to keep moving forward. And thank you guys for your support through this whole thing. And we're getting there.
Yeah. So we've been, like, again, like I said before, we've been continuing on. Like we didn't stop doing what we had to do. We were still doing our job. So had some meets, been to a few countries so far. So Germany and then Morocco.
And then came back home.
And
then came back to Rome, came back home. And then I just went to Estonia and
So,
came back home.
in and out of Europe 3 times in the last 30 days. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 trips to Europe, 30 days. I'm looking pretty good for the United 1K status.
Yeah, you're getting your miles, that's for sure.
So, yeah, we'll definitely get my miles up, and hopefully we get some free upgrades going into the next season.
So how would you say that how do you like interpret the first 3 meets? Obviously 4 meets, obviously it's not the best openers that you've had, and dealing with some other physical things before that, which kind of were tough. And like, I think we were really on a good page. We got back from Hawaii and then had a little physical setback that was kind of surprising right before Germany, which was annoying, almost canceled those trips. But, you stuck it out, you went. So how are you processing where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd sum up the first half of the season, whatever they call it, quarter of the season is definitely underwhelming. But, when you're not performing well, but you have a lot of other, I don't want to say excuses, but causes, it doesn't feel as, it's one thing when you're really, really peaked in shape and you're not throwing well. That's scary. It's another thing when you're dealing with a little bit of tweak of an injury and you're bouncing back from it, the emotional side of things, which we just talked about. And then of course, running back and forth to Europe. So it's just like, if I write that on paper, everything that happened and it wasn't me, I'd say, man, that guy's, we got to judge that with a little bit of a curve and hope that the remainder of the season, when we really start kicking off here in the next week, going to Prefontaine, that really kind of changes gears towards the next direction. So, I mean, I think there's definitely some lessons we learn from every single competition. I think even at this stage of the game, year 13 for me as a pro, which sounds weird to think of, but, travel, training, being a dad, you never do it the same.
Yeah.
You can never do it. You can't copy and paste what I did to win the world championships this year and I can do it the next year. It's just not the same. Life's not the same. So every one of these moments, I think, maybe if I didn't have the tweaked little tricep thing going on and everything I think it maybe could have been a little bit better. But I also know that the majority of our season really is August through September. Those are the meets with the big money that counts. And, I don't want to go to these meets and do bad, but I also want to make sure that I'm ready for the meets that actually have some meat to them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that, like I said, it just keeps going, right? So you didn't get a pass and nobody was like, well, let's wait till you feel better to do these meets. That's just not how that's not how this goes. Right. And so obviously, like we always talk about no one cares about your circumstances. And that in like when you're in it, when you're like, wait, I have a real valid thing that's going on, but still like no one cares about your circumstances, like not in a negative way, but just in a way of like, it is what it is type of thing. But when you're in it, it's like, yeah, I definitely should have a curve right here because things are definitely not how I thought that they were going to be for me at this point. But, at the end of the day, I think that the experience that you have, you just keep it moving. And like we talked about before, like, man, I've seen you throw 20 meters, literally 20 something meters. I mean, didn't you throw 20 meters before you won Doha?
Yeah.
In the Diamond League final?
I got the last in the Diamond League final, last place. Proud
The
of
way
that.
you're smiling about that is like semi-problematic, but
No, I mean, unfortunately, I've been in these places many times.
Yeah.
I even think back in 2015, before I threw 22.56, which was a super far throw for that time. The meet before I think I barely cracked 20, maybe it was 19 something. And then like I was rooming with Christian Cantwell and like that was my hero at the time. And then like 4 days later, I throw 22.56 and he was just like, that's just impossible. But like,
I've seen you do it.
yeah, I mean, I've done it before. I mean, for me, like I get confidence from just once the body starts moving well.
Yeah.
I always say that my job is like I'm a human cannon. I'm launching cannonballs. So like, even if it's a warm up or a practice, when I start seeing the ball kind of start whipping out there, it's like, okay, I can figure out how to stay in the ring and do it in the meet. Like that's the part about being professional. And that's my job to do it when it counts. Sure. But like, if you're a cannon that can't fire, then you got some real problems.
Well, it goes back to like what you always say about the mechanics versus the dynamics of it. And sometimes when I look at what you're doing, like technically it doesn't look terrible. Like it doesn't look as long. It doesn't look as fluid. It's definitely not as fast, but like positionally X's and O's, when you slow it down on the camera, which is I think what everybody does, it's like, what's the problem?
Well,
why isn't it going far?
No, I think that's a good point for people listening. Like, I'm kind of known for not really looking at film, though I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like I'd rather hear from you than look at some film. And I'm not saying that we never really like, hey, look at the film real quick.
I mean, I definitely look at it.
Do you see what I
Right.
see? But there's a point that like, there are sometimes I look awesome in slow motion and it's going 21 meters. You know what I mean? If that. And it can look awesome. Like textbook, you put it in a flip book, like you should copy this. These are the best positions of all time, but it's not going far. Right. So like there's a point where you can get so caught up with the angles and posture and positions that you get away from the fluidity that really what makes the ball go far. So like, I think there's especially for me, the way I throw and mentally and all those different things that come into it, there's a huge difference from just saying, hey, you're at the right angle, you're at the right posture, compared to, like you actually have compression, you're actually whipping the ball. It's actually like,
Yeah, dynamic. Like it's like there's a difference between like moving through the ring and like literally running the ring.
Yeah.
And when you throw well, like it is so synchronized, like it's so smooth, it's so rhythmic, it's so powerful. It just looks like butter, right? And then there are times where it just looks like it looks choppy, it looks clunky, piece by piece. And I think that sometimes we understand where that's coming from the travel, from the lifting, from the emotional stuff. And it's like that also tells us something. Yeah. So yeah, part of the thing that we do at this point of the year is, we're trying to smooth it out. So when we look at it and we know that technically it's not too far off, like if we do the right things and we've had enough experience together now to know kind of how to curve some of those things, like when you need what, when you need rest, when you need a certain type of lift, when you need to throw these balls or that balls, whatever. And I think, at the end of the day, I think that when stuff happens, that's big stuff, you kind of realize that at the end of the day, this is a job, it's a sport and we enjoy it and we're trying to do the best we can. But at the end of the day, like life is life. And we're doing this in tandem with life. Like, this isn't controlling our life. This isn't our whole life. This isn't the only thing in our life. And so there's going to be ebbs and flows. And I think that we're at a point in our life and then your career now where we're okay with that. I mean, it doesn't have to be, 22, 90, 23, 23 all the time. And it won't be, but it can be sometimes. And sometimes it can be 20 meters and then be 23 meters just in the turn of a head. So who knows? The night is young, right?
Yeah, the night's young and the season's, it's like I said, you can't do it the same. You learn everything along the way. And I think as you go forward, it's fun when you start to see the gears changing, because then you get to go back to the recipe book that you're normally used to using. When you have other things going on, injury, emotional, you're kind of just, you're not throwing.
Right.
I say this all the time, you're not throwing. What I mean by that is just like, there's a point where it's just like, okay, you're actually training. That's a real movement, or you're just like stiff and going through the motions. It's almost like you shouldn't even throw.
Right.
You have to get the reps in, but at the same time, you might be training bad firing patterns because you're so clunky and tight and
Right.
messed up. And some of that can come from the weight room, but then some of it also can come from the mind and the emotion side of it. So, I think we're getting through these things well. We're excited to kind of go through the next part of the season here. We have Prefontaine, USA's, and then August is jam-packed with Diamond Leagues, a gold meet in Hungary, and then, of course, Worlds are going to be in September. So that's when we're really kind of hoping to have the fulcrum of the year really kind of switch over and get that dynamic side to start moving.
Yeah, and so we've been dealing with all that, and then we also have picked up a new hobby.
Yeah, I was gonna just say, well, so we have a few hobbies. So we have chickens now. So Ashley, let's talk about that first. We have chickens.
All right. Well, I mean, I've always wanted chickens.
Yeah.
Not like always, like my whole life, but in the last, I don't know, maybe since COVID, I've like wanted chickens.
Since COVID, and also since we've been going to Costco, and you can't get the
they're
brown
out all
eggs
the
that we're
time.
used
No,
to.
I
They're just
can't.
not there. So
I can't deal with that.
And obviously anybody who knows us from the past, like, we are a big egg family. I eat a ton of eggs, and our kids eat a ton of eggs. So that was part of it too. But also,
I never
think
really
it's exciting.
thought it was something that was going to save us money. And no offense, I don't know if you were thinking that was going to be the thing.
I don't think it's going to save us money per se, but I think we'll have a we'll control the supply.
Yeah, and I control the supply, and I also like controlling what they're eating and like what they're doing. So like free range organic eggs, I mean, they're expensive. We talked about this. Like, do you know how much like one free range organic egg costs? Like per one.
Well, I mean, it's different Costco price, but you go to Kroger or Giant Eagle, it's a little bit different, way more expensive. Whole Foods even more, but like, our chicken coop's not cheap either.
No, I know, but I mean, like a free range organic egg is more than 50 cents an egg.
Sure, I would say probably 75 cents.
Yeah,
80,
close to that. Like that's really expensive, honestly. Like truly, it is like $6-7 for 12 eggs. We eat 12 eggs for literally 12 eggs for breakfast.
For those listening, we have 16 chickens now.
We have 16 chickens.
We have 16 chickens. They started like the cutest little chicks, peeps. They look like the Easter peeps. They were so cute, and like they grew so fast, and now they're like, honestly, they're like ugly chickens.
They're
now.
ugly, but they're also cool.
But
because
they're ours.
We picked,
they're ours.
They're ours, and then we also picked ones that were kind of unique looking. So there are a bunch of different. I mean, we have black ones, we have brown ones, we have white speckled ones, we have
Americana,
we have a bunch of different. We have like 4 different varieties, I think. But so we should have blue eggs, green eggs, and brown eggs coming. So I'm pretty pumped for that. We should be seeing our first egg maybe somewhere around August. And I swear on everything, if I'm not here when they lay their first egg, like I'm never leaving my house again.
Yeah, I mean that'll be like an exciting thing to have, because and part of us getting these chickens are we bought a big piece of land that we're gonna use. We have a big pole barn on it that we're gonna put a big gym, put some concrete pads down to have a throwing area for myself, and then the other post-collegiate and even some high school athletes that you work with to have a kind of mini throwing center here right outside Columbus. That's gonna be pretty cool,
and hopefully maybe we'll run some of our camps through that. I think that we could. It's definitely big enough, but that's something that we started dabbling with the last couple of years, the camp thing, and it's grown, and now it's pretty big. We have 6 camps lined up already for after your season's over that are going to be pretty good, and we're going to roll those out here on THROvacs pretty soon, but we're pretty excited about all of that. But the new area that we have to throw is going to give us a lot of opportunity for.
It gives us a lot of opportunity because, it's hard to find a nice piece of flat land, and, you you're coaching athletes that can throw, 70 meters plus, 75 meters plus in a hammer. And then you have an athlete, you might be a high school athlete throwing 100 feet, right? But you got to be able to be versatile enough to
Right.
hold an 85 meter, 90 meter flat area. And this, we definitely have enough space for that. So we have enough room to put a huge area for the long throws. Of course, the shot put, my favorite, the primary event, we're going to make sure we have a good flat pad for that. Depressed ring, and the ability to throw it into a net indoors. So we're going to be able to do a lot of cool things that we've been talking about for a while. We almost built a facility like this, though this kind of came along, you found it, and it kind of was bridged the gap between spending a bunch of money to have something so specific or have this that we have a lot of versatility from. And I think we're going to really benefit from this. And I'm excited to start doing some of the local club things that you're going to do with your camps and have some of the post collegiates come in there and have a place that's ours. So you're not going to a high school or somewhere that it's like good enough. No, we want to make sure it's, the standard that we would expect.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that the people that follow us on social probably know by now, and people that have listened to this podcast know that we're pretty deep into the real estate game, have nearly 10 properties now. So we're always kind of looking around for what we want. And this was something that we were really excited when we saw it because it fit a lot of our needs. But yeah, I mean, I think that this kind of plays into the whole real estate game that we've been doing. I'm actually a realtor. I got my real estate license.
Hey, congratulations, you passed the test earlier this year.
I did pass the test earlier this year, which I was like, no offense to myself, but I was surprised a little bit that I passed it the first time because it's actually not easy and it's a ton of content.
Yeah.
But I have my real estate license because
well, also too, I would say ton of content. Like you're like, obviously you wanted to do that, but also at the same time, like your passion is probably, closer to the CSCS test, the USATF, like throwing test. Like that's where your knowledge base in your heart is. So when you have to go study for something that's like not really your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it was outside my wheelhouse, but we've also done so many transactions, and we have our realtor is the best realtor ever on the
Lori Lynn Group, Keller Williams.
Yeah, she is the best and the best of all time. She's one of the top like 1% of realtors in the nation on volume. So she sells a ton of houses, but we've done so many. I think, what did we count? It was like, how many transactions? 22 transactions with her that we've done.
I think so. Something like that.
22 transactions since 2018. That's insane. I think it might have actually been like 24, which is nuts.
Because there were some 1031 exchanges in there too. So
yeah,
we've done a lot with her.
We've done a ton of business with her, but she's taught me some stuff along the way. But anyway, so I'm kind of like trying to stay a little bit more up on like what's out there. But yeah, I mean, essentially I feel like we're trying to kind of like just like get our stuff together that we want. Like we know what we want. Now we're just trying to find it. We know like the general areas where we're looking. The thing is, the areas that we're looking, everybody wants to live, so it's kind of tough to get exactly what we want, but we're always kind of on the prowl for that. But this is kind of something that I think is like going to fit our needs for right now. Probably not the last place we'll have. Yeah. But we're excited about it. And, I think that's just, we're kind of at a place in our life where, I like being at our house. Everybody knows I like cooking.
Yeah, if anybody's seen on Instagram lately, especially the Father's Day little run, I mean, every night's been amazing. So it's not just Father's Day, but like there were some amazing meals there, from the surf and turf, the lobster and T-bone steak, to my favorite, the lamb the next day, the mashed potatoes, the eggs Benedict with your homemade sourdough bread that you made the English muffin from.
But the thing was with the eggs Benedict, it was crab cake.
It was crab cake.
So yes, I know, but you like that. So
I do like
I usually try, like, when it's a special occasion to think of something that I know the things you like, right? Mm-hmm. But, like, when we've been out, like, when we used to go to Worthington Inn all the time, didn't you get the crab cake?
Yeah, the egg crab Benedict.
Yeah, the crab cake Benedict. Mm-hmm. Where else Hawaii, you got a crab cake Benedict all the time, too. So I know you like eggs Benedict. It's not that hard to make eggs Benedict. The thing, like, I took it, so first I'm like, okay, I'll make eggs Benedict.
Well, and one of the reasons I was like, this is a side tangent, but like I always get something like that when you go out to breakfast is because like my breakfast every day is amazing from you, right? But like we do probably more scrambled eggs, just pounding eggs down. So it's like kind of I'm not going to go out to eat and have something. I want something
for
different,
sure. I mean, well, that's what I was going to say. It's not like eggs Benedict is not hard to make. Like hollandaise sauce is not hard to make. It's just, it's a process.
It's good though.
Do you even know what it is?
I know it's like egged and it's thick.
So yeah, it's thick. All right.
And
so
you use a little immersion blender.
Yeah.
Thingy.
I mean, so like the hollandaise sauce is legitimately, this is exactly the only thing it is. It's egg yolk, and you warm up butter and you drizzle the butter into the egg yolk and you emulsify it. So I have that immersion blender, the hand blender thing I have, the red thing. And you like blend the egg and you with one hand and you pour the butter in slowly. And so I tried to control that a little
Doesn't it
bit.
just already sound good just hearing
Yeah,
that?
of course. So I was like, okay, that's not hard. I'll make eggs Benedict. Okay, then you poach the eggs. That's a step. It's not hard. It's just, it takes about 3 minutes. But you don't put like 10 eggs in at a time when you poach eggs because they can crack and like hit, they can like break in there, right? So you have to be delicate with poached eggs. So I was like, okay, I'll make eggs Benedict. That's not too hard. But then I was like, okay, let's elevate this just like a bit. I've been wanting to make English muffins. And I was like, how hard could that be, right? So really it wasn't that hard. Like, I mean, the sourdough starter just like gives me life. Like I can do so much with that thing. Like that thing is literally, the sourdough starter is undefeated.
So like, and speaking about this, not to cut you off, but like, I don't know what isn't the term like crunchy mom or something like this now. So now we got sourdough. We like live off your sourdough starters. No complaints. Sourdough is amazing. Anybody who's like, our neighbors are lucky because you give them some sourdough.
You and my son and your mom are my like three biggest fans.
Like every time Ashley like makes a blow, she gives one away. That's a thing too. So you've been doing.
I make two. I usually give one away. Yeah.
So, but there's people who know like the sourdough's been amazing. We have chickens now, and then I want to cut you off about your eggs Benedict. But you're fermenting these.
My drinks
concoctions. Yeah.
Yeah, I know everyone is like, what are you doing? And honestly, like honestly the thing is, I think everybody thinks, oh my gosh, like I don't know. Yeah, my Gingerbug. I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time.
Well, so sometimes I think I'm like, are you brewing alcohol down here?
Well, I mean,
you might be.
I mean, kind of. I mean, I won't really. That's why the kids can't. Like, the one I made with the dragon fruit was like super pink, and I knew if Kari saw it, it was going to be like pink.
It was delicious.
Yeah, I was like, you can't let them see.
So you have this Gingerbug thing that essentially.
So like, okay, basically, what it boils down to is like, I'm just going to be fully transparent. Like when I was in college, I'm sure I don't know what you were doing in college, right? I know some, but I don't know everything. But I don't know if you're drinking pop, soda. What were you drinking pop in college?
We don't say pop where I'm from.
Okay, what do you say?
We say soda.
Soda, that's fine. I mean, literally, we're the same. We're like our state and your state touch each other. I'm not from the South where I say like I call a Coke everything. No, when I was in Kentucky, they'd get orange soda and they'd call it a Coke.
Yeah.
They say like, okay, what do you want to drink? I'll have a Coke. All right, what kind of Coke do you want? I'm like, dude, that is not how it goes. Yeah. Like that makes no sense. Like root beer is not Coke. Sprite is not Coke. For sure, orange soda is not Coke. But like pop, okay, whatever. I don't care if you guys don't like it. Like that's how it's gonna be. I like pop. Like whatever. I like that. So like I was drinking Diet Coke. I actually preferred Diet Pepsi, honestly. And then I really preferred like Pepsi Zero Max. If I didn't care about myself, I would be drinking those quite often. Well, I mean, but I don't. Like I don't
good
drink
because
them.
They're engineered to be good, right?
Well, they're definitely good and they're crisp and they're delicious in the summer, right? So, but I'm not saying I never drink them, but rarely, like rarely.
It's not on the Crunchy Mom.
They're not in my house.
Yeah, we don't.
99% of the time, they're not in the house. Yeah. Like if I'm out to eat and there's like sometime I'm like, no, I need that right now, then I'm going to do that. But I don't order it myself.
But you're able now with your.
So yeah, so I'm making my own fizzy drinks. Okay. And I don't even know what to call them for sure. Like, so the Gingerbug, essentially the way you would like think of it, essentially think like sourdough starter, but ginger. So all it is you take the ginger, you crush it up. Okay. And you leave the skin on it and then you put sugar and water in the crushed up ginger. Okay. And the sugar is eaten by this, it's like natural yeast or something. I honestly don't really know like fully the science of like the details, but it carbonates. So I waited like 5 days and every day I fed it sugar. So my sourdough starter, I feed water and flour. My Gingerbug, I feed sugar and water. And then like in the beginning, a little bit more ginger. And then it starts carbonating. Like I could see it fizzing. Then I drain it out. Like I take the juice from it. That's the Gingerbug. And I like mixed it with some different juices and stuff. And then I started making like different starters. So it started as a Gingerbug. And then it was like a dragon fruit mango bug. And I have a mango strawberry bug. And I have a white grape bug. It's getting weird. Like when you said when you open the cabinets.
Yeah, there's definitely a fermented smell. Yeah.
Well, not only that,
not bad, but it's just
not only the fermented smell, but all you see is like my starters.
Well, your starters, and you're also, you had a couple of these things explode because the glass wasn't strong enough to hold.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, when they started, like, look, can you imagine? I told you, I was like, It was a thick glass.
I know.
And I literally walked away and I heard like a pop and I opened the thing and it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm talking about. Natural.
So what's been going on in your life since we had this last podcast is
Yeah,
sourdough's
but
been happening.
that's like my thing.
Chickens
though.
are
like,
here, and then we got some Gingerbug drinks, which are I'm not gonna complain. That
It's
sound
just
bad
to
about it
me
'cause they're
like I
delicious.
think
They're
people think that
delicious.
I'm like in there like I don't know if people think that I'm in there just like I hate the first of all I'm not to getting on a tangent about this but the whole like so after like the whole like Betty Crocker like whatever that was I don't know if it was Industrial Revolution I don't know around the 70s sometime when it was like everybody started having the
TV dinners and
TV
stuff.
dinners like after the war right.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know more this than I do. But regardless, like this whole movement, Betty Crocker movement was like, you're too important to be in the kitchen to the women, right? Which is fine. Like you can't afford to spend 3 hours of your time in the kitchen. Fine. Okay, whatever. So basically that's why we started having like tons of easy, quick processed foods in this country.
Sure.
Okay? So fine. Like whatever. Until you realize like that's not particularly good for you.
Right.
People are realizing that now. We like a lot of millennials in particular who were kind of like being fed things like that are having like issues. So like a big rise in peanut allergy, a big rise in celiacs, a big rise in like intolerances in general to like dairy. Okay, whatever. So I think people think that I'm in there like for like 15 hours a day because maybe it looks like that. But I do really care about the quality of the food that I'm feeding our kids. But more than that, regardless, I enjoy doing that. Like that is definitely something that I do. Like when I'm cooking, first of all, I take great pride in like what I'm feeding my family. Like I care about that a lot.
Well, I think it's also you call it like a hobby or you're tinkering, but you kind of enjoy.
I really enjoy it.
You enjoy this.
It's fun.
You're like a little mad scientist in there making the concoction of
Well,
like.
I like it.
Well, you put together good ingredients, you put them together, and then you're always trying to like one up yourself. And
yeah, and I mean it's like the thing we've said before. Like
I have
when
a
we
very easy, fun job of being your.
Well, it's
your
nice because I
quality
know you
control.
enjoy it, and it's fun because like I've said before, like when we go to Europe or when we travel in general, like I'm so inspired by the things that I see that I'm always like asking questions and taking things home with us, and then I just enjoy that. It's fun for me and I really care about having like we're gonna eat.
Yeah.
We're gonna eat, so we might as well eat well.
Might as well eat well, yep.
So yeah,
I
so
definitely eat good.
yeah, and that's been fun. So that'll continue to stay fun. But let's see, what's the next thing we got going on here? So Prefontaine.
Yeah.
Next week.
Prefontaine. Prefontaine's always like a preview as well going into USA's. So I think it's everybody who goes there is kind of making sure it's that last little kind of dress rehearsal, though we have a month between it, which is a little bit more than we normally have.
Right.
But I think that's kind of it'll be our third Diamond League actually, but I think there'll be I think everybody by then will be ready to start throwing well.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be ready for that. We leave at the end of this week. We have way too much media to do on Friday, but that's just part of the job. And then Saturday is really go out there and try to put on a good show.
Well, the most important thing of today is it's your birthday.
It is my birthday.
So that's the most important thing of the day. So we tried to start it off well. Had a good meal yesterday.
I had a very good meal last night.
Had a nice
lobsters last
breakfast.
night. Breakfast this morning was amazing. French toast with your made by your homemade sourdough bread. So I had a great day. I'll tell you guys, like as a father being out there, like having a birthday gives you obviously perspective of your life. Like how far you've been. I'm 36 now. So I'm getting up there, but having kids come up to you and they're saying happy birthday, like there's just, obviously there's some magic there about being a dad, but it's also like, this is where my life is. So it kind of makes you like, you have these proud moments today. So, I think some people, they think of a birthday, they're thinking positive or negative or this and that. But today I've been pretty proud of everything we've done to get to this point.
Yeah,
so,
because I mean, they
thankful.
couldn't say, yeah, for sure. I mean, they couldn't say happy birthday last year at this time. And
no, they just like seeing balloons. And,
yeah,
and
well,
our
that's
son
the thing.
was crushing cake. So
yeah, oh yeah, they love I feel like their 2-year-old birthday was like literally the best day of their entire life because
they have been
everyone was
celebrating their
here.
birthday since they're
like that was, you could see a light bulb go off in their head on happy birthday because it was like they finally understood something special's happening. We got them balloons to start the day.
They will ask to go on my phone to see pictures of their birthday.
They love their birthday.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal, and they talk about happy birthday all the time.
But June's pretty big for me because I had Father's Day 2
I was
weeks
just gonna
ago.
say they just got done saying they actually said happy Father's Day, which was great. But
Yep.
so one of the things that we try to do, and by we I mean I, when it's when it's a special occasion, I'm getting balloons just so that when they see the balloons, I feel like they're like, okay, something is
Well,
we're celebrating
you had
today.
it for Mother's Day too because of that reason,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So
yeah.
like
So we've done balloons. Good job, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on it with the balloons. So
But I mean, for them, it is a visual thing. Like when they see balloons, they know it's a
they
celebration.
know it's a celebration.
They don't know why, but they were
Well,
happy.
they did say happy Father's Day, so
They
they were
did.
proud about that. And then today they came down. I told them when I got them up, I was like, it's Daddy's birthday. You have to go down and say happy birthday. And
They both
went right
did.
to you, gave you a hug, and told you happy birthday.
They did, and that was pretty special. I mean,
Yeah,
that was
that was
pretty
cute.
special because, you know, they're trying to figure out how to even talk sometimes, and then for them to come over and give you a hug, it's just like sometimes they do things that are like more complex than you're expecting. You're just like,
it was really cute.
you're like, wow, this is
it was definitely
this is
like
our
they
life.
understood that it was your day, and I think they understood Father's Day too. So that was really cute. Well, what is one piece of advice that you'd give somebody? Say you were talking to your 26-year-old self. So 26 it was 2015. You won your first.
Yeah, wow.
You won your first world championship.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's 10 years ago. Wow.
So what advice, like, what do you think that you've learned, or like, think about how much different your life is now than it was in 2015? Like, what do you think you've learned in the last 10 years?
Well, I think it learned even better than advice because I think advice is relative to the person giving it, right? So it's just like that's why we can have a whole podcast on my whole thing on advice. You listen to Dave Ramsey, he tells you to pay everything off. You live with Robert Kiyosaki, he says take a loan out on everything, right? So you can get really caught up on that. So the advice I give from a parent now to tell myself as 26 is definitely different than the lessons I've learned to get here. And I think the lessons from 10 years ago of what I thought was to be world champion and to be in it and to live for it, my things I've learned is just there's so much more joy and so much more to come. And there's so much more happiness that I had. When I was young and single and you're trying to make a name for yourself, whether in sport or business, I think you do have to be a little selfish and bought in and just like in the grind. And that's what afforded me to meet you. And that's what afforded me to have our children together. Right. So, but that journey to get here, like there's so many things you could look back and be like, oh, that was a mistake, or maybe I should have done this, or maybe I shouldn't have done that. And like, I look back on every decision I made, super proud of them because like I'm here with you, with our kids. Like I couldn't script a better path. And I think that's the biggest thing is I think my mind was kind of like, especially 10 years ago, like a perfectionist, like everything in the gym had to be this perfect. Everything in throwing this perfect. Everything in my financial decisions had to be perfect, perfect, perfect. And if it wasn't a 10 out of 10, it was miss. And then I definitely made some mistakes along the way in the past 10 years. And now I look at them as like, thank goodness that happened. Thank goodness I took I moved to you when I did. I thank goodness with the sponsorship decision. I did that when I did because I could move to you. There are so many things that I think you could get caught up on paper, what's right or wrong. But when you kind of trust your gut, you trust your heart, and, we'll say there's a God's plan to everything. Like when you trust in that and you look back at it, those decisions on paper might not be right or wrong, but the decisions that I made in those 10 years, I'm super proud of.
Yeah. I mean, that's extremely well said and super articulate. I think of the phrase that people say, thank God I didn't get what I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's so much truth to that. And the other thing I think of hearing you say that is just, I think exactly what you said, like 2015 you, and I even think about 2015 me. I think there was a point in my life where I was trying so hard to prove myself. And I think that in the last 10 years, definitely 100% the last 5 years, I'm way more concerned, not about proving myself, but about being myself. And I think that there's a lot of strength in that. And I think there's a lot of maturity in that. And somebody told me one time, and this was like the most awesome thing ever. Like when I turned 30, I was just like, I am so sick that I'm 30. Like I was so just like, no way I'm 30. And this woman she's probably like 5 years older than me. And she's like, what are you upset about? And I was like, I just can't believe I'm 30. And she's like, 30 is unapologetic. And I thought that was so awesome. And I do think that about 30. I think 30 is like you really come into your own, like you're an adult. you're for real an adult. You're not like a big teenager anymore. You're not a big college kid anymore. You're an adult and it's real life. And I think that the way that I judge myself now, and like I think people always are thinking about, people say, "Oh, like love yourself" and all this. And it's like I don't think about anything like that. I care a lot more about just being able to make decisions where I can continue to respect myself. And I think that sometimes I have to make decisions that I don't maybe particularly like. Like maybe I wish I was making a decision that was a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I think that my guiding star is always that I'm making decisions that allow me to maintain respect for myself. And I think that you've made a lot of decisions like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what you're saying that, this is maybe a side tangent, but I think of that Luke Combs
Yeah.
song, or the lyric that says, "I hang my hat on what I won't do."
Yeah, yeah, I
And I
love
think
that.
that's something about maturity of just like when you're young and you're just like, yeah, let's go. Where are you going? And you just want to go, go, go and do everything you haven't done before and be part of everything you haven't done just because you have the opportunity to. And then you get to a point of maturity when you're actually happy with your true self, with your probably most people, their spouse and their kids. And that's when you actually start. I think for me, I had the identity of being a dad, which I love. Like that's when you're just like, why I don't even want to think about
It's just like it
anything
gets to
else,
a point where you literally feel like, and I hope you're at this place, and I think that in some ways you probably are, but it's like we've talked about this, like there's nothing left to prove to people, right? Like in your profession, there's nothing left to prove. And just like that feeling of I'm really happy with who I am and where I am and what I'm doing. Like to me, that means everything.
Well, I think there's something about being young, and I think this is bringing back to when you said about your 26-year-old self. It's like your identity is so trapped with your progress, right? Your identity is so trapped in, am I number one in the world? Am I proving people wrong, right? Your identity is so caught up with your profession. And then there's a point when, where I'm at now is like, I'd still like to throw farther to prove it to me and to you to be better. Cause we think these things can happen. But I think there's definitely a point where it's like, when you say there's nothing left to prove, like it's a commission job that I'm doing. If I was selling insurance or selling real estate, I'm selling the sport of the shop, putting entertainment value, right? That's essentially what is happening. So I do view it as a job, especially when it comes to some of these things, but it's not like I'm so caught up with my self-identity anymore and my, how far do you throw at this meat last week? And then I think it's probably healthy. Sometimes it is, I miss the motivation and the little like chip on the shoulder of like that little screw you mentality, but I think that's a part of maturity. That's part of getting older in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
sport.
and it doesn't mean that you don't care, and it doesn't mean that when things aren't going well that we're not irritated, right?
Yeah,
Like there's definitely still
well, I think it's
100%.
being irritated because you're capable. Like, it's different when you're irritated because you're capable of, not because you're irritated because you're looking at yourself that way, right? And I remember even being young on the circuit, and like I had a bad meet, and Christian Cantwell was just like, "Dude, we have a meet in 3 days," and that was
Yeah.
true. We did.
Yeah.
There was a lot more meets back then, and I think it didn't feel like the end of the world like it does now because there's less opportunities. But like, it was such a great perspective from somebody who was, I guess my age now, looking back when I was, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, of a guy who I looked up to was just like, dude, there's another meet. There's another meet. Like, you're fine. Like, let's not ruin
Right.
dinner. And
Right.
I was just
right.
like, I was just like, all right,
Yeah.
I don't want to be that
Yeah,
guy.
don't be a downer
Yeah.
at dinner, dude.
Like,
Like, we're gonna have another meet tomorrow.
Let's get kebabs and then I'll go to the casino
exactly.
with you. Yeah. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Well, happy birthday to you, and I hope that we can make your day special. And obviously, we love you, and we're really proud of you. And I'm happy to be where we're at. Like I wouldn't change anything that we're doing or anything about our life. Like honestly, I really wouldn't. So it's nice to feel good about your normal days.
yeah. I'll tell people it's a really fortunate thing when you don't want to leave your house, because that means that you have everything in order where you want it to be and you're proud of where you're at. And there was definitely a time when I was 26 where I couldn't wait to get on the plane
Sure.
every single day.
Same.
And when you were, college coaching,
Yeah, and you're just like,
you're on
next,
the run
next,
and you can't wait.
exactly.
And then there's definitely a point of your life where it's just like, I'm not saying I'm sad to go to a diamond league in Europe or that. I'm not saying that, but I am saying there's a point where, you're really proud of where you're got. 36 years old, having you as my wife, our 2 kids right now. It's just, there's no better feeling for me than to be where I'm at today. So thank you guys for listening.
Yeah,
we'll
thank
kinda
you
wrap
guys
it
for
up
all the
there,
support, and we really appreciate
we
it.
hope this is a good update,
Yeah.
not just on training, but life. And I know this was maybe a little couple side tangents on here too, but this is one of the things that we want to bring to you guys. And we'll talk more about training. We'll talk more about our camps. We'll talk more about some products that we have sitting in our garage that we got to put on the website soon.
Yeah, those.
Yeah. So we got a lot more on down the road to talk about, but we wanted to get back on posting and talking and keeping the conversation going. If you guys want to message Ashley on the @THROvacs Instagram, which I probably have access to too, but I make sure Ashley does all the, let's be honest, it's Ashley on there doing all the actual responding.
Well, we consult though.
Yeah.
I tell you what's
yeah,
on
you
there.
do. But if you have some questions, you have some ideas for topics that you want to hear about, training, life, whatever we can talk about here, we're excited to get back to doing this. So thank you guys for listening. This is Joe and Ashley Kovacs on the THROvacs podcast. We're throwing in our passion. What is it? Throwing in there. It's been a while.
It's THROvacs podcast.
We're the Kovacs family and throwing
collide.
We'll get better at that. Thank you guys.